Bank of Canada's interest rate pause could actually force landlords to sell their properties. And when you hear that statement, you might think, well, that's good. That means that more inventory will come to the market, and that's what we need. But there's two sides to this story. What it will also do is make a tenant have to leave their property and find a new place to rent. And it's very likely that these landlords are selling these properties because the tenant's currently paying under market rent based on what they could have rented it out for today, and their mortgage rate has significantly increased if they had a variable. My name's Tom Story, and welcome back to this channel. We're going to dig deep into this topic on today's video, and I'm going to share some personal experiences with you about selling properties with tenants in them that I've experienced already in 2023. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video. I'd very much appreciate that if you did, if you find any value in what you learned today, and also make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are just on the cusp of getting to 9,000 subscribers, and I really do have that goal to get to 10,000 by the summer. So if you haven't already, you keep coming back to these videos. I'd very much appreciate it. You can also go into the first link in the description and book a call directly with me at a time that works for you. Okay, so what we're talking about in today's video is a recent article that came out by CTV, and they quoted two real estate agents. Actually, I know both these agents personally. They're both great people, and it's cool to see them in this article. And they're talking about the fact that, okay, Bank of Canada holding rates may actually force landlords to sell. And you might think, well, wouldn't that be good that they're holding rates and they're not going up? And it's true, but it's really the time. It's the time that they've been holding the rates for and how long they will continue to hold the rates for, because it's likely they're going to be holding the rates at least till the end of this year. Because it's now been one full year of the full effects of the rate hikes actually getting to people with these variable rates. And I know a lot of landlords that were maybe breaking even on their variable rate with the rent that they were charging their tenant. And today they're negative $1,500 a month. And that's what this article is getting at, is that the longer these rates hold, or obviously go up, which would make it even worse for them, the more inventory potentially could be coming to the market. So let's review this article together, and then I'll share my opinions on it. So this is on CTV News website. Bank of Canada interest rate pause could force landlords to sell properties. Okay, so Bank of Canada's decision to hold the interest rates on Wednesday could put financial pressure on landlords and leave renters vulnerable. So this is the big kind of part of the story that you wouldn't have thought of right away, is that the renters are actually the ones here that are going to be displaced as well. And they're going to have to re-rent new properties in a rental market that is very, very competitive. And if they've been renting their current place for 3 years and the landlord sells and they have to rent a new place, it's going to cost them more money. So it's almost like the landlord's selling because they're losing. The tenant has to move, which sucks. And then they have to rent for the it's a smaller place for the same amount of money, or the same size place for more money. And it just becomes, on both sides, not an ideal situation. So a quote here by Devel says that every month we have a rate pause, there will be landlords who struggle to hold onto their rental properties. And I understand even a comment made like that for people that are not in the market already, or look at people that own multiple properties as part of the issue. And I totally understand that, by the way. You'd say, okay, this is good, but not if you're renting their property, right? So there's two sides to this. Then further down in the article, a friend of the show, Daniel Foch, who has been a podcast guest for us, he said, it is time that is killing landlords financially. The freeze in interest rates means that they will be forced to carry higher costs for prolonged periods of time. And he added that renters are at the mercy of their landlords should they be forced to sell. This leaves the average tenant at a disadvantage and creates a supply of units that will ultimately cost more to rent. And I agree by the statements made in this article by Devel and Daniel. We're seeing this as well. And actually, already in 2023, I have never in my career, in a decade of doing this, listed so many properties that were tenanted. And I'll give you two reasons why a lot of people have reached out to me to sell their properties that were tenanted. First reason, which is kind of the obvious one brought up in this article, is that a lot of these people had a variable rate on their investment property because it was so much lower at a point, but is obviously now so much higher, and the cost has been significantly higher. And they want to basically get rid of this property because they're negative $1,500 a month. And every month that goes by, it's costing them more, and they're saying, you know what, I'm out. Now, I will say that most of the people that have reached out to me, and we've already sold their properties with a tenant in it, They didn't buy it at the peak. They bought it 3 to 5 years ago. So they're still coming out way ahead in terms of the appreciation of the asset, but the monthly payments were eventually getting to them. The second type of seller that has reached out to us to sell their tenanted property is the type of seller that is looking at now, okay, the house that they wanted to get to, right? Maybe they're currently living in a condo and they own another condo as an investment, but they want to get into that freehold market. And the freehold market has come down significantly from the peak, but they're starting to notice that it's picking up again. And we've had 3 months of price increases, and they don't want that gap to get too much bigger. So they're liquidating the investment property and then selling their principal residence as well, combining them both and buying the house that they want to live in for the next 5 to 10 years. It's become kind of an ongoing joke, even with my assistant. When I let her know we have a new listing, she's like, all right, send me the tenant's information and I'll start reaching out. So this is something that is actually happening. We are helping a lot of people sell properties with tenants in them. And for the tenant, I feel bad, right? It sucks, right? You don't want to move. You don't want people to come view your properties, but based on the landlord tenant board with 24 hours notice, you do legally have to allow showings. And I was thinking of actually doing on this channel a long form video of everything you would need to know if you are selling a tenanted property or if you are a tenant in a property that is being sold. But let's just touch on a few things that are really important. If you're a tenant and you're still in your 1-year lease, meaning let's say you're 6 months into your 1-year lease and your landlord says they want to sell, your lease, if you want to stay, supersedes the owner. So they can sell it, but the next owner has to assume you as the tenant. Number 2, if you are on month to month and the owner says that they want to sell the property, they do have the right to sell the property and to show the property between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. with 24 hours notice as per the landlord tenant board. They can only give you notice once it has sold firm through a form called the N12, and it is only if the buyer or an immediate family member is moving into that property. That buyer could also choose to assume you as the tenant. The notice is 60 days, but it's 60 days from the beginning of the next calendar month. So if the property sells on the 17th of the month, the 60 days starts from the 1st of the following month. And the third thing is there is landlord tenant rules and regulations that you have to follow if you want to go just by how they're written out, but anything mutually agreed upon between you and your landlord, as long as it's in writing, can be done as well. I've heard circumstances where landlords will offer their tenant like 2 months rent just to leave early and find a new place. And as long as you both agree with that and you sign an N11 and you're all on the same terms, then you're good to go as well. Anyways, I'd like to know what you think in the comments. Do you think that this is going to be an ongoing issue? Because even though it's good in some way that it brings properties back to the market, it's also not ideal because then it forces tenants to move and then maybe pay even more money on rent and get stuck in that renting cycle instead of trying to save for their first property. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Tom Story, and remember, home is where your story begins.